They declared me dead on paper, but I didn't come back for revenge. I came back to build something they couldn't touch. This isn't just a survival story. It's about rebuilding brick by brutal brick until the silence they forced becomes the legacy they can't rewrite. My name is Rowan Greaves. I'm 34 years old. And 3 weeks ago, I found out I was legally dead. It didn't come in a dramatic envelope or some movie-style confrontation. No, it showed up during a failed bank transaction. I was trying to refinance my apartment to pull equity for a business idea. The clerk frowned at her screen, tapped a few keys, then looked at me like I was a puzzle missing half the pieces. "I'm sorry, Ms. Greaves," she said. "The system's flagging your SSN as ... inactive, terminated." My stomach tightened. Terminated. Like expired. Like deceased. I blinked, laughed. Because what else do you do when someone tells you the government thinks you're 6 feet under? But she wasn't joking. She printed the record. I held it in my hands. Rowan Elise Greaves. Status: deceased. Date of death: 3 weeks before my grandfather passed. Cause of death: unspecified. Source of confirmation: sealed. Sealed. That's when the laughter died. I called my sister Era first. She picked up on the second ring. Chipper. Distracted. "Ro. Hey, you okay? Been a while." I didn't waste time. "Did you know someone filed me as dead?" There was a beat of silence. A long one. "What? 3 weeks before Grandpa died? That date ring a bell." "I know. Of course not. That's..." "What are you talking about? That's insane." She was lying. Not in the way people do when they're hiding something big. It was the small hesitation. The kind where someone scrambles to remember which truth they told last. "Era," I said, more firmly. "Did Leonard have you sign anything? Estate paperwork? Trust docs? Anything like that?" Another pause. "Just some insurance stuff. Legalese." I didn't read it. "He had a notary come by. Said it was for asset protection." "You didn't read it." It was thick, boring, looked official. I thought he said. I let the silence hang. Let her squirm. "I didn't think they'd file it," she whispered. "I thought it was ceremonial. Legal cleanup. Legal cleanup. Like removing mold. Or a mistake. Except I wasn't mold. I was breathing." Back at my apartment, I tore through my old filing cabinet, pulled my passport, social security card, birth certificate, all still there, still valid, still me. I took them straight to the county registrar's office. The clerk looked up after typing, then frowned. "Your file is closed." "What do you mean, closed?" "Terminated by court order. Emergency motion, sealed. Family estate division. Very rare." "Can I see the order?" She adjusted her glasses. "Not without a judge's unseal. And that can take time." "How much time?" She shrugged. "Depends on who you pissed off." That night, I dug into my old email backups from the Greaves family vault accounts. Something Grandpa gave me limited access to when I handled digital security during college. I still had the password. No one had bothered to revoke it. One name appeared over and over. Dr. Cambria Fenney, retired physician, used to do house calls for elite families, including ours. The emails showed she'd submitted a letter verifying I had long-term mental instability and identity confusion. I had never met this woman. Her number was disconnected. Her address, still listed in an old directory, was 1 town over, so I drove. The house was small. Paint peeling from the edges. Porch light dead. But the mailbox had fresh mail. I knocked, no answer. I waited in the car. 30 minutes later, a sedan pulled up. An older woman stepped out with grocery bags. The license plate frame read, "Dr. Fenney." She saw me and froze. I stepped out slowly, hands visible. "I'm not here to hurt you, but you signed something about me. Something false. I need to know who gave it to you." She blinked. Her eyes were glassy, like she'd been caught in a memory. "Was it Leonard?" A slow nod. "Shameful. He said you were unwell, that you'd suffered breakdowns, PTSD, that you thought things that weren't real, and you believed him. He said you agreed, that it was just a formality. Legal smoothing, he called it. Do you know they used it to declare me dead?" Her face crumbled. She whispered, "I didn't know." "Then get a lawyer," I said, turning to go. "And don't answer any more of Leonard's calls." She didn't respond, just backed into her house, and locked the door. I sat in my car under a dead streetlight, fingers clenched around the wheel. My name, my life, my identity signed away like it was a tax deduction. Not even for hatred. Just convenience. I needed help. Not just a lawyer. A weapon. So I drove to the one person I trusted to set a fire without leaving fingerprints. Sylvia Marsh lived in a one-bedroom apartment above an old bakery. She opened the door in sweatpants and a frayed Harvard Law hoodie. Coffee in one hand, a slice of cold pizza in the other. She saw my face and stepped aside. This better be illegal. It is. Good, eat. You look like a ghost with a grudge. I handed her the folder. Death certificate. False records. Forged documents. She flipped through it, like counting cards. Classic, she muttered. Filed through a Delaware shell. They thought no one would check. They didn't expect me to come back. She nodded. They filed you dead. That's not coming back. That's resurrection. She flipped the last page. I'll need your VA records. Discharge papers. Anything with your signature. I've got them in storage. Originals. No digital trail. Get them tonight. I stood. She looked up. You want justice. Or revenge. What's the difference? Justice follows the law. Revenge breaks it. Then I want both. Her smile was thin. Then we'll start with the law. And build from there. Back in my apartment, the silence was deceptive to still, like the moments before a storm breaks. I moved, mechanically, flicking on lights, locking the door, and setting my keys on the counter. Then I headed for the old metal filing cabinet, shoved in the corner behind a shelf of unopened mail and forgotten tax forms. I hadn't touched it in over a year, but I knew what I was looking for. I pulled out 3 documents: my original Social Security card, my birth certificate, and my passport. All were still valid. All bore the name Rowan Greaves. Not the ghost version they tried to file away. The real one. The legal one. I shoved them into a folder and drove to the county registrar's office without thinking, just moving on adrenaline. And Spite. The clerk, a middle-aged woman in a sweater vest, looked confused when I handed over my documents. Then she looked at her computer screen, her brows furrowed. This can't be right, she murmured. What is it? I asked. She adjusted her glasses. Your record's been closed by court order. What court? Family, Estate Division. I leaned in. Show me. She shook her head. It's a sealed emergency motion. Very rare. You'd need a judge to open it. How long does that take? She gave me a flat look. Depends on who you pissed off. I left with a printout confirming my worst fear. Someone had filed to legally erase me, and the court rubber-stamped it, like it was just another piece of paperwork. Back home, I turned to the last thing that hadn't betrayed me: printed emails. From Grandpa's vault. One name popped up more than once. Dr. Cambria Fenney, a retired physician who'd done house calls for wealthy families, including mine. According to one email, she had written a letter to the estate court confirming that I suffered from long-term mental instability and identity confusion. The problem was, I'd never met her. I ran her name through an address database. She lived 1 town over. I drove there that night. The house was old and peeling, swallowed by ivy. No lights on, no car in the driveway. But the mailbox had fresh envelopes, postmarked just 2 days ago. I waited. 30 minutes later, a modest sedan pulled into the driveway. An older woman stepped out, groceries in hand. Her license plate holder read Dr. Fenney. She froze when she saw me standing near her porch. I raised both hands. I'm not here to hurt you. But you signed something about me. Something false. And I need to know who told you to. Her eyes widened. She blinked hard, like her brain was buffering. Was it Leonard Greaves? She didn't speak, just nodded slowly, guiltily. He told you I was mentally unstable. He said you'd been through trauma overseas, she whispered. That you were confused, dissociative. He made it sound tragic. And you signed a medical report. He said it was for estate clarity. That you'd consented. I didn't know they'd use it too. I didn't know. You thought he needed fake records for fun. I thought it was a formality. Inheritance, cleanup. Get a lawyer, I said. And don't answer any more of his calls. She backed into her house, locked the door without another word. It wasn't guilt that burned the most. It was how easy it had been for them. How casual. They filed me off the planet like renewing a car lease. And I knew deep in my gut that Era's name had to be somewhere in that paper trail. I needed help, so I went to the only person I trusted to burn it all down without leaving a fingerprint. Sylvia Marsh. Sylvia opened the door in sweatpants and a Harvard Law hoodie that had seen better days. She held a slice of cold pizza and a mug of black coffee that smelled like motor oil. Her apartment was a war zone of legal files, case binders, and half-dismantled printers. She took one look at me and stepped aside. This better be illegal. It is good. She handed me the pizza slice. Eat. You look like a ghost. With a grudge, I sat on her couch. She flipped through the folder I brought. A death certificate, a forged medical letter, property transfers, a check, and a flash drive. She scanned it like a casino owner counting cards. They filed you through a Delaware shell, she muttered. Sloppy. Did they think no one would check? They didn't expect me to come back. She raised an eyebrow. They filed you dead. That's not coming back. That's biblical. Sylvia had once sued the Pentagon and won. Now she ran cases that no firm wanted to touch, out of a cluttered living room. I need your help, I said. You got it. But I'll need access to your VA records, deployment orders, anything signed by you. I handed her a second folder. She nodded. This proves you're alive, that you didn't agree to squat. If we can match your signature to the one they used on the equity transfer, we can bury them. You mean you can? No, she said. You can. You want revenge or justice? She asked, sipping coffee that looked like it could strip paint. What's the difference? Justice follows the law. Revenge breaks it. I didn't answer. She typed something quickly. Braden Textboard has an annual audit window in 11 days. If you want to blow this open, that's your shot. I want it airtight, I said. No spectacle. Just facts and fire. Sylvia grinned. Facts and fire. That's going on my gravestone. She called someone named Miles. Crow, she said. Got a live one. Military inheritance fraud. Forged death. The works. Bring the clean laptop. Miles Crow arrived within the hour mid-30s. Wireframe glasses, ponytail, with the cold demeanor of someone who'd seen more secrets than sleep. He flipped through the forged transfer documents. See this? He said, pointing to a loop in the G of my last name. You always do this little hook on the downstroke. But here, he pointed flat line. No hook. This signature is scanned. From where? Public records. Probably your 2018 DD214. Sloppy lift. Can you prove it? He opened his laptop. 2 minutes later, side-by-side overlays glowed on screen, one real, one fake. Compression levels, pressure inconsistencies, pixel bleed. I'll write the affidavit tonight. This won't survive. 10 minutes in court. Sylvia handed me a printout. They used that forgery to transfer 40% of your voting shares into a holding company tied to Leonard's trust. She signed it with my name. With a fake version of your name. During the period you were legally deceased. That's not just civil fraud, is it? Miles shook his head. Wire fraud, document forgery, conspiracy. If the assets crossed state lines. Federal. Sylvia leaned in. This is the thread. We pull it, and the whole sweater unravels. She filed a preliminary injunction the next day. I didn't sleep. I didn't talk. I waited, and then I made one last call. One they never saw coming. 2. The journalist who'd asked Ara for comment 3 months ago. Nash Wilder. He answered, on the first ring. This is Nash. This is Rowan Greaves. You asked my sister for a comment in April. A pause. You're the one Braden Tech filed dead. That's me. Well damn. What changed? I'm not dead. That'll do it. We met that night in a diner off Route 15. And I told him everything. The courtroom was too cold. Not from temperature, but from silence. The kind that sharpens everything it touches. The kind you can feel in your ribs. This isn't just money. It's memory. It's legacy. My grandfather's recorded voice said. And if they tried to burn hers down, this is how she comes back. The clip ended. No music, no fade out. Just a black screen and a stillness that hung like fog. Judge Rena Kinley didn't move. Her expression was unreadable. Her specialty. No murmurs from the court. No shifting in seats. Just that hush. Respectful. Electric. Kinley finally folded her hands. What's the defense's position on this testimony? Leonard's lawyer. Benson Price. Rose. A suit to smooth voice, to practiced. It's emotionally compelling, Your Honor, but ultimately irrelevant to legal standing. Sylvia arched one brow, then calmly placed a thick binder on the table. Then, perhaps the forged signature, the falsified death certificate, and the wire fraud transaction logs will offer more relevant context. She slid the binder toward the judge like she was presenting a loaded weapon, including an affidavit from the physician misled into certifying Miss Greaves' death. I glanced across the courtroom. Ara looked like she was shrinking into her chair. Leonard's posture had changed to shoulders rigid, eyes dark and narrowed. Kinley opened the binder, flipped through it, page after page. 30 seconds. Maybe more. But when you're the one being exposed, that time feels like a countdown. Then came the slow, deliberate nod. Let the record reflect. Kinley said, her voice even, that I find the evidence of identity suppression and signature forgery credible and serious. Benson stood again, desperate now. Your Honor, even if there was confusion, these events unfolded under the belief that Miss Greaves had abandoned her role in the family and company. Kinley cut him off. Her voice didn't rise, but it landed with weight. You didn't just try to manipulate this court, she said, turning toward Leonard. You attempted to erase a person, a veteran, your daughter. Then she looked at Era, and you facilitated it. Era opened her mouth. Nothing came out. The gavel hit once. This court recognizes Rowan Greaves as the sole legal heir to Marshall Greaves' estate and the rightful controller of Braden Tech Systems and all associated assets. All transfers, sales, and actions made under false authority are hereby frozen, pending criminal investigation. I didn't flinch, didn't smirk, just stood still. My name was finally mine again, but my body hadn't figured out how to relax. Leonard stared ahead, his jaw clenched, so tight, I thought his teeth might crack. Era's eyes glistened like she might cry. But she didn't. Maybe she didn't remember how. Sylvia leaned close. You just took the throne, Greaves. Outside, reporters crowded like gulls to a shipwreck, cameras flashing. Nash Wilder was already rolling with his crew, mic in hand. I walked right past them, no statement, no comment. Just the sound of my boots on concrete and the weight of my name finally sitting right. I took the long way to the cafe. Midtown Caf. Overpriced, overlit, the kind of place where professionals go to feel important. Ara was already there, seated, by the window. 2 coffees sat untouched. She stood when she saw me. Too fast, nervous. I sat without a word. I didn't know, she said quickly. About the death certificate. About the will. I swear, you signed it. I thought it was standard paperwork. Dad said it was restructuring. I just signed where he told me to. You were scared, I said. Her hands wrapped around the coffee cup, shaking. He said if I didn't help, I'd lose everything, too. So you chose survival. She nodded. I didn't think you'd fight back, she whispered. You always just left. That's because I knew what happened when I stayed. She looked down. I wasn't trying to hurt you. You did. I thought I was protecting what was ours. Ours never included me, Ara. Not once. Her mouth opened, closed again. You didn't just sign a form, I said. You signed me off the map. Watched them light everything on fire. I was stupid. No, I said. You were careful. Stupid would have been forgivable. She wiped at her eyes. So, what now? I pulled out my phone, set it on the table, face down. It had been recording since I sat down. She didn't notice. I'm not pressing charges, I said. You'll get whatever's fair under the law. But you don't get access. No board seat. No stake in the company. You're not part of the rebuild. I'm still your sister. And I'm still alive. That didn't seem to matter to you. I stood. Rowan, please. I looked down at her. The half-finished version of the girl who used to braid my hair before school. You picked your side, I said. Now you get to live with it. I left her there, coffee still cooling. The wind outside had picked up. I zipped my coat and kept walking. Past the train station. Past the cafes and restaurants where we used to eat together. None of it felt like mine anymore. And that was okay. I wasn't trying to reclaim what I lost. I was building something new, with hands they hadn't broken. I reached the small red brick building, tucked between a florist and a closed-down laundromat. The address Grandpa had marked. Start here. It used to be a print shop. Then a piano studio. Then nothing. Now, it was mine. I stepped inside. Dust. Silence. And a kind of emptiness that felt like a clean slate. I sat cross-legged on the floor and opened the last envelope from Grandpa's vault. Inside, a floor plan sketch, a half-completed business license, and a note, make something they can't erase. So I did. The floor was cold, but not uncomfortable. The dust still clung to everything, and the echoes inside the red brick building made every breath sound like it mattered. For the first time in a long time, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt like potential. Grandpa's sketch lay flat beside me. His handwriting loops through the margins. He'd started something and left just enough for me to finish it. A floor plan, a half-filled business license, and a note that now felt like a commandment. Make something they can't erase. I spent the night there. No lights, No heating, just a legal pad, a flashlight, and 100 thoughts pouring through my pen. I called the county office first thing in the morning, fast-tracked the license. Then I reopened my dormant LLC Greaves Insight Group. It hadn't taken off back then, but it had never officially died. Kind of like me. Permits were filed, paint colors picked, contractors hired. By the second week, the sign was up. Greaves Foundation. Veterans, women. Forward, no ribbon cutting, no PR circus. Just me and Dean, a vet who now runs a nonprofit for women coming out of service. He shook my hand with the kind of grip that says, "I see you." We signed the paperwork at the front desk over burnt coffee. No speeches, just intent. "What are you hoping to do here?" he asked. "Build what I needed 10 years ago." He nodded, like he understood more than I was saying. The Foundation's first project was simple but urgent. A legal fund for female veterans navigating wrongful discharges and post-service housing nightmares. The second initiative, Operation Second Voice, a mentorship program, pairing women fresh out of uniform with those who'd survived the system and stayed standing. Grandpa would have hated the name, but he would have loved the fight. Sylvia joined the board pro bono. Nash used his network to run our press release quietly but effectively. Miles built the cybersecurity infrastructure because I trusted 3 people in this world, and he was still one of them. For the first time in years, the work felt clean. No more boardrooms full of polite knives. No more pretending to be something I wasn't. This was mine. All of it. From drywall to mission statement. Then the letter came. No return address. Just my name in familiar handwriting on a crumpled envelope. Inside, a photo of Grandpa and me, sitting on the porch when I was 7. We wore paper crowns he'd folded from birthday wrap. On the back, he'd written, "Takes more than fire to stop royalty." I pinned it to the corkboard in my office. No frame, just thumbtacks and truth. The space filled quickly. Not with noise, but with purpose. With people who got it. Clients came. Partners signed on. Some wounds stayed bruised. But the building stood. Late one evening, after a vet support group, I stayed to clean up. Empty coffee cups. Stacked chairs. A quiet hum from the old heater. I stepped outside and just stood there. For once, I didn't feel like a soldier or a daughter or a ghost. I felt whole. Tomorrow, I'd go to the courthouse, finalize the deed. But tonight, I was just here. In the place I built from the ashes. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't waiting for anyone to take it away. The heater buzzed softly behind me, casting a steady hum into the otherwise silent studio. The corkboard in front of my desk had grown crowded. Sketches, contacts, program drafts, names of women who reached out. Some were looking for resources. Some were just looking for someone to believe them. Every pin on that board was a life threaded into something bigger, now something rooted. That week, the Greaves Foundation received a certified envelope with a gold-embossed legal firm's seal, Braddock and Clemens. Inside, a formal proposal from Braden Tech's interim board, requesting a meeting. Not with Leonard. With me. Their new legal counsel, someone not yet stained by the family's collapse, had worded it carefully. Exploratory discussion regarding post-injunction continuity. Sylvia scanned the letter and snorted. Translation: "They're trying to stay afloat without admitting you were right." Miles looked over her shoulder and added, "They don't want you to scorch the earth. They want you to mow the lawn." "Do I go?" I asked. Sylvia set the letter down. "You go. Not for them. For the people still under Leonard's policies. For the engineers and junior staff, whose pensions are tangled up in this mess. You go as the firewall." So I went. The boardroom looked different from how I remembered. No portraits on the wall. No family crest. Just stark glass and silence. Leonard's seat at the head was conspicuously empty. The acting board chair, a silver-haired man named Kessler, greeted me with a half-nod. "We're not here to contest control," he began. "We're here to request a partnership." I didn't answer, just listened. They wanted a transition period, a rebranding, an internal ethics review, preferably led by someone neutral. "I'm not neutral," I said. "Then be principled." Kessler replied, "You're what's left of the company's soul. Everyone else burned it." That line stuck with me. When I left the building, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt heavy, like I was dragging the name of Greaves out of the mud with both hands and wondering what the hell I'd do once I got it clean. That night, Sylvia and I sat in her apartment, surrounded by legal pads and pizza boxes. Miles sent encrypted updates from his basement lab like a hacker monk. Nash texted 3 headline drafts, each more ferocious than the last. But I kept going back to one thing: legacy. Not just the one they tried to steal, but the one I wanted to build. We finalized the first formal partnership between Braden Tech and the Greaves Foundation. Free legal aid for any veteran employee wrongfully terminated. Mandatory trauma-informed leadership training. A 10% revenue earmark for post-service reintegration support. Leonard's silence wasn't compliance. It was a retreat. He'd fled the public eye entirely. No statements, no interviews, not even Ara. She'd disappeared from the press, her name showing up only in redacted court dockets. She'd made her choice, and I'd made mine. The Foundation's first annual report was published 2 months later. 48 veterans assisted. 9 housing placements. 3 formal mentorships. In progress. 1 story was published anonymously in a national journal by a young woman named Tori. The title, Buried But Breathing. It went viral. That same week, I received another envelope. No return address. Inside, only a folded sheet of paper and a thumb drive. On the paper, written in clean, slanted script: "You didn't just survive, you recalibrated the fight." On the drive, a video. My grandfather again. Different location. A rooftop. Wind in his hair. "If you're watching this," he said, "you've done what none of us could. You dragged the family name out of the fire, not to wear it, but to wield it. That was the point." He paused. Then, "Don't let it make you soft, and don't let it make you small." I closed the laptop and sat with that. Not crying, just breathing. They had declared me dead, but I hadn't come back to haunt them. I came back to rebuild brick by brutal, beautiful brick. Winter had sharpened its edge. Wind chased through alleyways and glass-front cafes, like it was trying to find something it had lost. I stood by the window of the Greaves Foundation's 2nd floor, sipping black coffee that had gone lukewarm an hour ago. Below, women filtered in, some in uniform, some in heavy coats, all carrying stories that had been buried too long. We'd just passed our first anniversary. No champagne. Just a memo to staff: "You built something permanent. Now let's reinforce it." Dean knocked lightly before entering my office. "The City Council approved our expansion grant," he said. "We're clear to break ground in May." I nodded. Double the counseling space. Quiet rooms. Legal clinic, open 5 days instead of 3. Already on it. He started to turn, but paused. "Did you see the press request from the Journal?" Did they want to sit down? Legacy feature. Titles something like From Battlefield to Boardroom. Are you interested? I shook my head. Tell them the work's the headline. Not me. Dean grinned. Knew you'd say that. I had stopped being a symbol. I didn't need to be. The work was louder than my name now. Later that afternoon, Sylvia dropped by with a box under her arm, and sarcasm ready on her tongue. "You still hate framed awards?" "Yes. Too bad." She placed it on my desk anyway. Inside, a plaque from the National Legal Defense Network for advocacy in systems where silence once ruled. I ran my fingers over the engraving. It wasn't about noise. It was about clarity. "And that," she said, "is why they're scared of you." That night, I found myself back at the small storefront we'd converted into the pilot studio, now called Greaves Forward. The lights were off, but I still had a key. The inside smelled like old wood and printer ink. Everything was quiet, like a held breath between sentences. I walked to the corkboard in the back room. We hadn't taken it down. Rows of photos, scribbled notes, volunteer rosters. In the corner, still pinned, the photo of Grandpa and me, wearing those ridiculous paper crowns. Below it, I'd added another photo, this one from a mentorship session 2 weeks earlier. A young woman named Zara had just been offered a position at a local engineering firm. She stood smiling, arms outstretched, flanked by her mentor and a foundation lawyer. Below it, I'd written in ink. She wasn't erased. She was launched. My phone buzzed. "Nash again. Nash. You sure about no press?" "Nash, this could be national NPR level." I replied, "Rohan, let the work speak. Let them wonder how I stayed standing." Because that was the point now. Not to be visible, but to be unmissable in results. 2 months later, I was invited to a quiet roundtable on federal veteran policy reform. No cameras, no sound bites. Just 6 people in a DC boardroom and a handwritten agenda. I wore boots, not heels. Spoke plainly. Told them what we needed, at the end. One of the undersecretaries, an older man with tired eyes, said, "You don't seem angry." "I'm not angry," I replied. "I'm just building a future you can't delete." And I meant it. The more we grew, the less I needed to explain. My name didn't precede me anymore. My work did. And the people who once tried to bury me, they had become irrelevant. Their silence was no longer powerful. It was proof they'd lost the war they didn't know they were in. One evening, walking home from the foundation, I saw Ara again. She was sitting alone outside a bakery, coat pulled tight, eyes on her phone. She didn't see me. I didn't stop. I didn't hate her, but I didn't carry her anymore. Not her guilt. Not her apology. She had made her choices. So had I, and mine had turned into blueprints. Brick, law, legacy. Home. I opened the drawer of my nightstand and pulled out the last envelope Grandpa had ever written. Still sealed. I stared at it for a long time before sliding it back into place. Not yet. Some legacies unfold slowly. And I had time. It was raining the morning. I returned to the courthouse for the final hearing. The one that would officially dissolve the last legal claim Leonard had over the Greaves name, the company, and the foundation. I didn't bring a crowd, no reporters, no camera crews. Just Sylvia, and a folder thicker than any brief I'd ever carried. A record of everything. Every forged line, every buried file, every life we helped rebuild. The courtroom was quieter this time. Leonard wasn't present. His legal team had filed a motion to attend remotely. The judge denied it. No one escapes consequences through WI-fee. Judge Kindley presided again, as direct and unsparing as ever. She reviewed the final affidavit from Miles, the verified record from the Braden tech servers, the full video testimony from my grandfather, now registered in 3 national databases. When she ruled, she didn't read from notes. She looked up. This court finds the actions taken by Leonard Greaves and associates not only fraudulent, but corrosive to the spirit of lawful succession, family integrity, and veteran honor. All claims by the defendant are hereby nullified. The rights, assets, and operational control shall remain with the plaintiff Rowan Greaves. Permanently, no applause. Just the echo of a gavel that sounded like closure. Outside, Sylvia hugged me briefly before hailing a cab. Miles texted a single fire emoji. Nash sent a photo of the courthouse with a caption. History pivoted here, and I walked out through the drizzle, past the bricks that once loomed like barriers, past the windows of old offices that once shut me out, past the lies they'd written my name into. When I got to the foundation, the lights were on. Dean was leading a new orientation session. Tori sat at the front desk, now officially on staff. There were fresh flyers on the wall, a waiting list for mentorship programs. 2 interns interviewing candidates in the side room. A legacy. Not inherited, but earned. Later that night, I returned to the studio, the training center, my second act. The last envelope Grandpa ever left me was still on my desk. I'd opened it once, never reread it. But now, I unfolded the page again. It read, "If the world ever tries to make you disappear, do one thing. Make noise that matters." So I did. I sent a press release not to shame the past, but to introduce the future. A partnership between Greaves Foundation and 3 regional universities. A mobile legal aid unit for women transitioning out of service. A scholarship named after a woman who never made it back, but whose story taught me what silence costs. A month later, Ara sent a letter, not asking for forgiveness, just acknowledging what she'd done. I didn't respond. She'd written herself out of this chapter. Leonard's assets were frozen. His influence evaporated. He gave no interviews. Moved out of state, changed his name, tried to rewrite himself. But you can't edit the truth when it's etched into case law. And me, I was still building. On the foundation, they tried to bury me under. Not out of revenge, not even for justice, but for every woman like me, who was told to be quiet. I signed the last permit approval for our 3rd satellite center, then walked outside, stared at the night sky, and breathed. No armor. No script. Just a name they couldn't steal. A future they couldn't stop. And a record they'd never rewrite.